featuring the latest Philadelphia Flyers news, as well as updates around the NHL. Today we will be going through the picks the Flyers made in this year's draft, and a look ahead at what to expect for development camp. So before we get into the draft, the Flyers released a statement a few hours before the draft announcing that they will be buying out the remainder of forward Cam Atkinson's contract. The Flyers acquired Cam Atkinson in 2021 via the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Jakub Voracek. He did have an impressive start with the Flyers, and he was an early favorite, and he really took pride in the city and the fan base. But unfortunately, he suffered injuries throughout most of his career with the Flyers and was never really able to fully get back to his health. I like Atkinson, and I wish him the best of luck. I do believe this was the right decision by the Flyers, and I hope that he's able to find a better fit in a different team. So the other talk that was heating up prior to the draft was the possibility of the Flyers trading up their number 12 pick in the draft for the Columbus Blue Jackets number 4 pick. So Danny Briere had reportedly talked to the Columbus Blue Jackets on Wednesday prior to the draft, offering a swap of a couple of first-round picks, a roster player, and perhaps next year's first-round pick. So presumably this was pitched in order to try to acquire Ivan Demidov to try to pair him with Matvei Michkov, following the announcement that Michkov was of course coming to Philadelphia. It's believed that the Flyers were the ones that ended up saying no to the deal because the player that was thrown into the package was more than likely Travis Konechny, and that would have been too high of a sell for the Flyers. So while a Michkov-Demidov pairing would have been a dream here in Philadelphia, I'm kind of glad we ended up trading one of our biggest assets for someone who is not yet proven on the NHL, although he has potential to be great. And now, moving on to opening night of the draft. So I want to give a quick shout out. I attended the Flyers draft party here in Philadelphia, and it was hosted by fellow podcasters, Philly Sports Flyers podcast. They were broadcasting their podcast live as the event went on, and it was a great turnout. Gritty showed up, and it was so much fun watching the reactions of the picks with other Flyers fans, so shout out to them. And the night started out with a bang. The Sphere in Vegas looks like such a cool venue, and all the graphics on the wall or the Sphere itself were incredible, and I can't imagine how cool it must have been to be there in person. So when the San Jose Sharks come up and take their first pick, I wasn't expecting much excitement because we all knew it was going to be Macklin Celebrini, but then they call up Joe Thornton to make the announcement, and I was so freaking stoked. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit here because most of you don't know, but I grew up a huge Boston Bruins fan. I'm from Houston, Texas, so don't at me. My stepdad was a huge Bruins fan, and I of course wanted to root for the same team as my stepdad. So Joe Thornton was my favorite hockey player growing up, and I cried like a baby when the Bruins traded him to the Sharks in 2005. But anyway, back to the draft. So Joe Thornton comes up to make the announcement, and not only am I stoked because of what I just mentioned, but I'm watching the draft at a bar in Philly with a bunch of Flyers fans. And everyone starts cheering for Joe Thornton, and I just loved seeing the amount of respect that people have for Joe. And it just made the announcement that everyone already knew was going to be celebrating that much more exciting. And it kind of set the tone for the rest of the picks on the draft. So I'm not going to go over the entire draft, but I will go over the moments that are of key importance to the Flyers. So we get to pick number 4. The Columbus Blue Jackets are on the clock. The clock starts winding down, and we're all watching with anticipation to see if a trade happens, but nothing gets announced. The Blue Jackets personnel go on the stage and announce their pick. They take center Kaden Lindstrom from Medicine Hat WHL team, and we love another pick. Then the Montreal Canadiens are on the clock. The clock expires, the Canadiens personnel go on the stage, and who else but Celine Dion to announce their pick for the draft. And I already had a gut feeling I knew where this was going. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but her pre-announcement speech just seemed to go on forever, and then she slows it down more, and she takes a pause before each word, and I'm like, come on, just say it already and end our misery. And then she announces, with the 5th overall pick, the Montreal Canadiens select Ivan Demidov, and the bar is full of booze. Our dreams are crushed. Now, I like Celine Dion, but I'm gonna need a break from hearing her voice after hearing her say those words. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, or the other moment we've all been waiting for. Pick number 12. the Flyers are on the clock. Things are still looking pretty good for Flyers camp. Defenseman Steve Buim is still available. Center Konsta Helenius is still available. Surely the Flyers will take one of these, right? Wrong. The phone is ringing. Danny Briere is on the phone. Hey, it's the Wild. We want your number 12 pick. So the Wild take the Flyers' number 12 pick, and the Flyers move back one spot to take the Wild number 13 pick, and an additional third-round pick in the 2025 draft. Not a bad deal if you're Danny B and you know you're still going to get your guy. So the Wild, with the number 12 pick, acquired from the Flyers, select defenseman Steve Buim from Denver in the NCAA. So once again, the Flyers are on the clock. The clock expires. The Flyers personnel take the stage, and then ring announcer Michael Buffer, aka Mr. Let's Get Ready to Rumble, uses his trademark line to make the announcement. Surely it's Konsta Helenius, right? Wrong again. With the 13th pick in the first round, the City of Brotherly Love welcomes the Philadelphia Flyers selection. Weighing in officially at 187 pounds, standing tall at 5 feet 11 from the Guelph Storm, he is Jett Luchanko. So I have to be honest, my immediate reaction was a bit shocked that it wasn't Konsta Helenius. That was my favorite to be the Flyers pick, but it was also like kind of confusion because I'm going to be very honest, I wasn't that familiar with Jett Luchanko. So then I was like, okay, the fact that Helenius was available and the Flyers went with this guy means the Flyers camp knows something that we don't. So of course, I immediately looked this guy up along with everyone else at the draft party, and I'm like, okay, this guy looks pretty promising on paper. He has potential to be a great two-way center in the same way that Helenius did. He has the skating, he has the reflexes, and hands to get to the net quickly. He had 20 goals, 54 assists in 68 games with the Guelph Storm. So I was like, okay, maybe we just got the steal of the draft? To be determined, right? And also, was that not like the best announcement ever for the NHL Draft selection? I think we got this one over Celine. So just one more point before we move to the rest of the Flyers picks. While Konsta Helenius was my original favorite to be the top pick for the Flyers, I know a lot of Flyers fans were upset, and some still are, that we didn't take Cole Yzerman. Listen, there's a reason he didn't end up being selected until 20th in the draft, and why I had him as my 4th choice for the Flyers. Like, sure, he can score, and he had a great record year in the US 18 team, but you have to be good on both ends of the ice. And my fear with him, and probably a lot of the other teams that passed on him, is that you can't just be a one-trick pony in the NHL. You gotta be able to hold your own as well, or you'll get plummeted in the big league. So personally, I want to thank the Flyers for not choosing him. The Flyers were initially gonna have 2 picks in the first round, the second being the very last pick of the round at number 32. But once again, the Flyers are on the clock, the phone is ringing, Danny B is on the phone. Hey, it's the Oilers this time. So we give our second pick of the first round to Edmonton in exchange for the first round pick of the Oilers in either 2025 or the 2026 season. So that wraps up day 1 of the NHL Draft. And we're back for day 2 of the NHL Draft. So to keep this moving along, and because day 1 is not as interesting as the first day of the draft, we're just going to quickly go over the rest of the picks for the Flyers, and then I'll share my thoughts on all the selections. So to be fair, I did watch the entire second day of the draft, and I can say with all honesty, that was my first time watching all of the second day of the draft, and it's nowhere near as exciting as day 1 of the draft. I did like when they show, like in the final round, when players are still getting selected, and a lot of people have left by that point, but some of them still have their families patiently waiting and hyping them up when their name gets selected. And it's really cool to see that, so kudos to all the friends and families that stick to the end to see if their player gets selected. So the rest of the Flyers picks, in the second round they take, with the 51st pick, Jack Berglund. He's center from Swedish team Färjestad BK. With the 59th pick, Spencer Gill, defenseman from Canadian team Rimouski Oceanic. In the 4th round, with the 107th pick, Heikki Vuonen, center from Finnish team Kiekko Espoo. In the 5th round, they take, with pick 148, Noah Powell, right wing from Dubuque, I believe that's correct, in the USHL. Then in the 6th round, with the 173rd pick, they take Ilya Pautov, right wing from Russian team Krasnaya Armia from the MHL. And then finally, in the 7th round with a 205th pick, Austin Moline, defenseman from Shattuck St. Mary's U.S. high school team. So to recap, the Flyers take 3 centers, 2 right wings, and 2 defensemen. I like these choices. I like that we loaded up on centers because you have to keep in mind not every player that gets drafted ends up making the NHL. So you might as well load up, and if at least one of these guys makes the team in a couple of years, then you've done your job. Because good centers, especially good two-way centers, are hard to get these days. So one more thing that I wanted to touch base on. For everyone that's upset that we didn't take CBUM with our first pick, the priority for the Flyers was a center, and we got a center. It wasn't the one I thought it was going to be either, but I'm pretty content with the selection. And also, Jett Luchanko is a pretty badass name. I hope he pans out because I can't wait to hear "Goal by Jett Luchanko." And it's just so fitting that we got Michael Buffer, of all people, to announce it. But anyway, back to our soft defense. Hot take, but I don't think our defense is as soft as the fan base makes it out to be. I thought Travis Sanheim had a terrific season and responded well to the criticism he took from his 22-23 season. And a lot of it could be due to the big step forward that he had to take this season, with losing Ivan Provorov, taking in a huge amount of ice time, and also with all the injuries our defense underwent this year. I thought Sandy and York made a great pairing, and York is also coming off a very solid year, with this being his first full year with the Flyers. He also took in a lot of ice time, and he earned that top pairing with Sandy. I personally was pretty pleased with getting Jamie Drysdale off that Quitter Gauthier deal. Sure, Quitter's a great player and all, but honestly, the more he speaks, the less I like him, and I'm glad that Briere made that move right away with Anaheim. Hopefully Drysdale can recover during the off-season. I think he was expected to undergo a minor shoulder surgery, but I'd like to see him have a healthy start to the year and hopefully see him play a whole season because I'd really like to see what he can do. But I believe in our young core D, and we also have Oliver Bonk in the system. And if he has a good camp this week, we could potentially see him make the lineup this upcoming season as well. But yeah, trust in our D. It's shaping up, and we got some new talent. Speaking of new talent, Development Camp is this week. Development Camp is from Tuesday, July 2nd until Saturday, July 6th. It is at the Flyers Training Center in Voorhees, New Jersey. We will see most of this year's draft class take the ice. Players expected to be there. There's a total of 39 players on the roster. 6 of the 7 players of this year's draft will be on the roster. The only one that won't be there is Ilya Pautov. But from our top prospects, Denver Barkey, Oliver Bonk, and Massimo Rizzo are all expected to be there. Matvei Michkov will more than likely not be there as his visa situation is getting processed and the Flyers are trying to finalize a deal with him. So sorry if you were hoping to see him, but he will more than likely be at training camp later on this summer. So all sessions are free and open to the public. The Flyers will also be hosting a fan fest on Saturday, June 6th from 3 to 5:30 p.m. And they will have an autograph session from 4 to 5 p.m. before the players take the ice for a 5-on-5 scrimmage. So Monday, July 1st, or today as I'm recording this, is the trade deadline. So we will be discussing any signings and trades that happen on that next episode. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And I guess maybe comment, like, and subscribe if you'd like. Bye!